Greetings friends, in this video we're going to take a look at 3 or 4 YouTube channels which illustrate how adults, particularly adult men, have been living in fantasy. So the first channel that I think is a good example is Clayton Fioriti. And Clayton's channel, as you see here, is all about dinosaurs. But it's not just dinosaurs generally, it's specifically Jurassic Park, which admittedly is really the only major dinosaur franchise that I know of, like movie franchise, but still it's all everything related to that. So Sam Neill, here's a thumbnail with Sam Neill in it. Sam Neill was the actor in the movie, he played Grant, but that was back in the 90s. This movie is like, what, how old now? It's coming up on, not long from now, it's going to be 30 years old. The original Jurassic Park, so give me a break.
This is a pretty funny image with Alan kind of looking wild-eyed and scared out of his mind, which a lot of people probably haven't seen since the infamous Alan scene from JP3. I've already seen a lot of fans memeing the image and putting...
So Clayton Fioriti, he relives moments from that film again and again, and of course other films in the franchise, but it's like continuously going over it again and again. And that was his voice. He provides commentary. Let me see if I can find another example. Oh my goodness! Why the original Jurassic Park cast returned in Jurassic Park?
Hey guys, hope you're all doing well. Now for today's video, I wanted to talk about some of Colin Trevorrow's recent discussions on the original Jurassic Park cast showing up in Jurassic World Dominion. And also, I wanted to go over some new set photos that the production has recently put out to the public.
So that's the voice of Clayton Fioriti. Now, he almost never shows his face on his channel. And if you're asking why do I watch channels like this, because I'm fascinated by personalities and I'm fascinated by what makes people do what they want to do. And you know, this guy, he's got a good thing going on here. He's probably making, you know, donation money and whatever and merch. But he rarely shows his face. But here he went to Jurassic World, so he had a video from last year, my Jurassic World experience, and he does. I gotta turn down the music because I don't want copyright strike. He's playing the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but there he is. That's Clayton Fioriti. I hope he doesn't mind that I mean, you know, here he is. He's showing himself on the internet. I don't wish him ill, but I do wonder: is this face? Is that the voice that you're hearing?
I think people may be
Is that the voice you're hearing here?
And importance.
Is this voice? Do you put that to this? I mean, this guy's stronger than me. I'll give him that. He's probably more muscular. He's more muscular than me, but he's kind of a, you know, I don't know if what I'm saying is he enhancing his voice? And I could be wrong. I don't mean to insult Clayton Fioriti, but I want to know, is he enhancing his voice?
Of Laura Dern, Sam Neill, and Jeff Goldblum's characters in this movie, Colin said. It is very much an ensemble, and that element, the ability to take these beloved characters and from almost 30 years now, understand how they interact with each other in the context of a world that we've really never...
And this is the guy that's providing that voice? I mean, he's not... It's just a song here, so there's no voice here for me to go off of. That's the thing. To my knowledge, he's never appeared on any live stream on camera. Like, I think he's done it not on camera, but that's the thing. And actually, I should have shown at the beginning, Clayton Fioriti, if you go to his About, this is the part I wanted to... Join me on my quest for bullshit and revel in our conquest of movies, games, and... Did he put that in there as like he's self-aware? He's kind of like tongue-in-cheek, like, yeah, I know I'm on a quest for bullshit. Or did he knowingly do that? Or was that I'm just a little curious about that. But anyway, so there you have an idea of his channel. It just goes on and on, all this stuff about just rehashing, and like he did, you know, he walks through games, he You know, he explores every sort of film or TV adaptation of anything related to this. And the thing is, it's not even based on real science. It's obviously more in the science fiction sort of area, anyways. Not that science fiction or fantasy that there's anything wrong with that, but it's not even like I find evolution channels that are all about like paleontology. A lot of them are kind of goofy too. All the illustrations they use, but at least those are based on real science to some extent. This is just based on whatever, just pure imagination. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't want, go drone on too much on each example because I know this video is probably already getting longer. But the idea is that they lose the story, they lose the significance of the story for this endless expansion of details and an endless expansion of a world, like an imaginary universe. An imaginary universe where the plot loses context because you're just endlessly creating, different things in the plot, and that's not the way a real story works, because a real story has a definite end. It can't go on forever. It has to have an end. The end has to be clear, and then you leave it because you don't want to kill the legacy. That's why when you do sequels or a third movie, you got to be really careful, and then after that, sometimes if you even manage to pull it off, which is very difficult, then you leave it. And that's one of the reasons why there's no good movies made anymore. And they're also asking silly questions, but that's something I'll get to in another example here. So that's dinosaurs. This is adult men living in fantasy. Another example would be History of the Ages. This YouTube channel focuses on Lord of the Rings lore. I thought it used to be called History of Middle Earth. If I'm not, maybe I'm mistaken, but it seems to be now. When I looked up History of Middle Earth, this came up. So maybe, but anyways, here you see their video collection. Are there any Balrogs left in Middle Earth? Boromir's betrayal. What if Boromir took the ring? Everything that happened in Numenor during the Second Age. Numenor, some island which is not even on Middle Earth. So that's not even... so let me just click on a random one. Well, which one should I click on? I don't know. I don't like elves. Those are silly. Okay, what's this one?
Hello and welcome to History of the Ages. Today we are looking at the most powerful and iconic axes from Middle-earth.
Build me an army worthy of Mordor.
Now, a few weeks ago we released a video on the most powerful swords of Middle-earth, and it came to be really well received actually, so thank you for that. But we keep getting asked, could we do follow-up videos on the other types of weapons as well? So today is that day where we carry on with this, and I thought we could continue with the melee type weapons first. So let's have a look at the most powerful axes.
And my axe.
Alright. Well, anyways, this looks... I don't really want to watch any more of this. This is silly. Because, it's not... I mean, okay, Tolkien, he was a creative guy, a very imaginative guy. But also... Lord of the Rings, I have read the trilogy and I have read The Hobbit. It's been a long time, but I did read it. And I've seen the movies. I didn't see every adaptation. And honestly, in some degree, the movies, at least the first one, the first Lord of the Rings, the first movie they did, that was actually good, better than the books, in my opinion. Because the books go on too long, and Tolkien, he needed an editor. Maybe he had an editor later, but he never had a proper working relationship with any editor to tell him to cut down all the crap, where he's going on endlessly about details. And I'm not saying bringing this up randomly, because this ties in with what these adult men do in their fantasy worlds. They go on endlessly about these details. And this is something that Tolkien did in his books. And then he would sometimes cut the plot shorter in other areas where he could have expanded it more. So he would explain a lot about boiling a turnip soup or some thing like whatever someone singing a song, just really mundane, inconsequential stuff to the plot would take up many pages, but other more interesting things in the plot would be dealt with very quickly, where they could have been more developed, so an editor could have helped Tolkien. So anyways, there's that same thing going on here. So maybe they're relying on some of the stuff he wrote, but does it really matter to any grand story? I mean, maybe you'd say yes or no, I don't know. Maybe Tolkien, but this is the fantasy world where it's just one thing after another, and all these questions, silly questions, some of these are silly questions. Do we need to know if there are any Balrogs left in Middle-earth? Is Middle-earth even real? Some people say it has some real parallel in whatever in the past. I mean, that's an interesting thing to explore. But when you get to all of these questions, obviously, are just, they're just satisfying I don't want to call it, I don't know if it's an intellectual curiosity. It's almost like an imaginative, like satisfying this imaginative desire to keep the world going, to keep it expanding, because you keep the world alive by seeing detail and exploring. I guess they're trying to make more plot to this world. I just don't think that the plot has much of there's no good, like, what's the story? Like, what is this vast expanding universe? It seems chaotic to me. It needs to end. You need to let this stuff go. So if a man is genuinely fascinated with stuff like this, if a man is fascinated by who was Arendil, the one that killed Ankalagon, the Black, if you're fascinated by that, then I'm wondering what's going on with you, man. Like, I wonder if you're all right, man. And so we don't need to look anymore at this History of the Ages, but there was another one similar to this that did Lord of the Rings kind of lore, and it's called Men of the West. Let me just click on, what is this? The Easterlings of Middle-earth, updated? The Easterlings? The Easterlings. Men of the West.
The Easterlings were mostly men of cruel and evil kind, descendants of those who had served and worshipped Sauron before his overthrow at the end of the Second Age. Hey everyone, Yoiston here, and I hope you all are doing well, wherever you are.
So that first picture looked absolutely ridiculous. This looks completely absurd. And then here, that just looks like something out of the Crusades. A poor quality painting of something from the Crusades.
Explore the history of the Men of the East here today. I'll link some articles and videos that helped with the creation of today's video, and I hope you guys check them out. Thank you all so much for joining me today.
See, a lot of these battles just weren't believable because the way they play out, it's just tactically they don't make sense. Like,
now, let's begin our tale. The Easterlings, or swarthy men, were people who had
so
dark
now
hair and
he's
eyes.
relying on images from video games. So video games also help to expand this world forever and ever, just with video games, with all the data you can now interact in these worlds in real time.
Broad, with darker shades of skin tones and complexions, being shorter in stature but with long and strong arms. These men were generally friendlier with dwarves and the dwarven language Khazul than they were with the elves and with their languages. In terms of their
Alright, so yeah, like, I don't know, it's boring. So they're... So anyways, adults living in fantasy. So one more example, which is from a different genre, which of course everyone knows, Star Wars, but I'm not a Star Wars fan at all. I mean, I watched the movies as a kid, but since 1998, I really could not have cared less about Star Wars. And I was 12 years old when I saw the Phantom Menace, or, disappointed by that movie. And they were never the same again. But even looking back on the originals were not that good. Like the original Star Wars, and then even the second one wasn't that good. Return of the Jedi was all right. They were more. I liked it better as a kid, at least. But none of those movies are like, if you compare that trilogy to the Indiana Jones trilogy, the 2 Ghostbusters movies, or the 3 Back to the Future movies. Those are really good movie series from the 80s. But Star Wars, no, it's like the plot, the drama, it's just like a peg lower. It's not a real quality movie. It's not bad, but So, but I don't know, just because of its cult, its fan cult, that's why it's still around. But all this stuff, it's the same idea, just an endless expansion of universe. This channel does pretty much the same thing, just exploring whatever fictional creation. And so, why most Mandalorians were addicted to committing war crimes. Well, I guess everything's going to be about war, kind of, because it's Star Wars. By the way, I didn't like either the Jedi, or either the Rebels or the Empire. I don't like either of those guys. But anyways, like I don't even want to really, like, what would I honestly want to click on? All these videos look so silly, like map of the galaxy explained, how many clones were dispersed to each war front. See, a silly question, how many clones were dispersed to each war front? Like a 10-minute video exploring this topic. Okay, what's this? The tragic past of Ugnaughts. Ugnaughts? The tragic
There
past...
are many species in the Star Wars universe.
Oh, okay.
Some more memorable than others, so you'd be forgiven if the word Ugnaught doesn't exactly ring a bell. Though, with the recent prominence of Kuiil in The Mandalorian, more of you might recognize the name than would have been the case previously. Kuiil is perhaps the most prominent Ugnaught character in mainstream Star Wars media, and honestly, of all time. But his species existed in the universe since the release of The Empire Strikes Back, and the expanded universe long ago gave us their story. In this video, we'll be discussing the...
Well, that looks pretty creepy, and I mean, like, good costume design, I guess, but again, it's weird, yeah, it's ugly. It's an ugly, weird factoid, and we don't need to know about this thing. So, but I'll just conclude with this. I was rewatching a little bit of the Star Wars first movie in preparation for this video, and I noticed that Luke Skywalker, obviously, he is a gay man, but I mean, I guess he wasn't. I don't know when he came out of the closet, but in that movie, it's like he's a very soft character, and you can kind of tell how he is. I found that the dialogue, him and Obi-Wan Kenobi, was very weak dialogue. A lot of scenes didn't make sense. Like, how come the Sand People didn't kill Luke and just threw him down on the ground for Obi-Wan to come and find it? Like, why didn't that? There was no explanation. There was no explanation as to why Luke Skywalker suddenly decided that he wanted to join Obi-Wan in his mission to free Princess Leia or what. Besides that, I was noticing that from the beginning of the movie, they're throwing together all these different alien species on Tatooine, and they're showing you all the different aliens, like in the bar in the town, and it's just like showing you that being and life is just this endless spectrum of, like, you see all these other monsters can be like drinking at the bar just along with you, and what it really is demonic. That scene in the cantina where all those like weird creatures are there. That's like something out of a Hieronymus Bosch painting, which he was a real painter from, I think, the 1300s or so, 1400s, painting religious subjects, obviously, but so. Yeah, there you have it. That's pretty much my conclusion. I thought there was sort of like an Darwinist, evolutionist, a materialist kind of subtext to some of what Star Wars is about, because it relies implicitly on evolution. Kind of goes with life in outer space, because if it's all just dead matter coming together, then there's plenty of dead matter out there. So it's got to make life but no, what you could also see, and it's just a bunch of like demonic blending boundaries. But you see that the most human looking creatures are obviously the ones who lead the movie, who lead the plot, because they're like normal humans with normal faces. They're not crazy aliens. Like, yeah, you have the Wookiee, you have whatever, but that's just like a supporting role. But anyways, I know I'm rambling on here. But adult men living in fantasy, please let it go. It's just like superhero movies. I won't get into that. But superhero movies, the same thing. Let it go. Once you're past the age of 12, like, you don't really need to be watching or participating in any of this movie culture or fan fiction. You don't need to be participating in it. There's better things in life for a man. A story needs an end. You're losing the depth, that you're losing the significance of the story. Let the story end. Let it have an ending. That's what makes the story a good story. Hasta luego, amigos.